Thank you, Tim, and good afternoon to all. My name is Liosatos and Managing Director of Traffic Technologies. Could we move on to next slide, please? So for over 15 years, Traffic Technologies has been the leader in hardware and software solutions for road authorities across Australia, New Zealand and abroad. And with the introduction of smart cities and IoT, the company has expanded into what now we have an end-to-end traffic management system across a number of industry sectors. Next slide, please. So these three key industry sectors, road authorities, councils and power companies, make us quite unique in what we actually do in nature. So, and this can be delivered, as you can see here, 600,000 devices over 23 countries, 128 cities on 31,000 intersections. Now, some of the countries we deal in, UK, Qatar, Hong Kong, Singapore, China, just to mention a few. Now, out of these, 6.5 million data points are providing required information to key decision makers within these three sectors. Next, please. What we have here is our operational cycle, and what drives us are the market requirements, where we either manufacture, develop, or provide a service. Either way, all roads lead back to an IoT device where additional value lies. Now, this is an extremely important point for us, as it is here where we provide analytics from asset condition reports, data analysis, proactive information to the asset owners in councils, road authorities and companies to make these informed decisions. Next slide, please. These are some of our customers that you can see here. We have all road authorities around the country, including in the UK, Transport for London, Hong Kong Highways Department, Land Transport Authority in Singapore, and of course the Qatar roadway itself. And all single councils in Australia, is approximately 357 of them, and 70% of the power companies we deal with. Next slide, please. So here, as cities grow and expand with major infrastructure spending, big data is becoming the key driver in obtaining these desired outcomes for road authorities, councils, and power companies. And with our 4 trigger points that you can see there, 1 in capturing, 2 in processing, 3 analysing, and 4 visualising is the key part here, where people are starting to visualising their data so they can actually make these informed decisions in delivering the outcomes of reducing environmental and financial impact, but increasing safety for the users by the use of our hardware and software. Now, this is all great and fantastic for all new programs, but we also must remember that there's a huge legacy issue of systems and hardware will need to be digitized and upgraded moving forward. Next slide, please. So what we see here is the addressable market worldwide. As you can see, it's enormous. And people like us, TTI, we need to capture value by creating new revenue streams and providing connected solutions and services to our customer base. Now, IoT devices, the Internet of Things and devices, will be increasing the economic impact on reducing operational costs, obviously reducing environmental impact and driving safety initiatives. I can't stress enough here the importance of this, because everything we do as consumers on our roadways, or commuters on our roadways, I should say, is soon to be connected or will be connected. Next slide, please. Here is a typical example of how actually we approach the market. So this is typically one of our products here, LED street lights, only one of our items that we deliver. And I'll move from left to right with this slide. Stage 1 is we actually sell the product, which is already smart city ready, in this particular case, a street light. Stage 2 is where we provide additional software and sensors. Now, the sensors aren't limited to what you can actually see here in the middle section of the slide. There's a number of different sensors that are used for various different tasks. And then we go to stage 3, which is the final part, and where we're evolving to, which is deliver the software, the hardware, and software as a service framework to have a fully managed service. Next slide, please. Here, I mean, people need to remember we come from a hardcore manufacturing background to now being a hardware and a software provider, delivering on the requirements of our customer base, as mentioned earlier, road authorities, councils, and power companies. I mean, the business continues to evolve with enormous expansion occurring in smart city initiatives in providing software as a service to our customers. I mean, compared to traditional methods here in providing and maintaining infrastructure, software as a service along with devices, is much less expensive to run and provides better margins and accounts for greater capital efficiencies. Next slide, please. Our key advantages here are that we align ourselves with smart city initiatives across our customer sectors of, as I mentioned earlier, road authorities, the 537 councils across the country, and power companies. Our hardware and software is approved across all these three sectors, which is very, very, very hard to do, and delivering outcomes and services across New Zealand and overseas. Next, please. FY21 was a good year for us, delivering 18% increase in revenues and 120% increase in EBIT. That has all been led by a lot of recurring revenue that occurred, which is greater than 40% at this stage and growing. Moving forward, we hope to increase that to the next levels. And the long-term contracts have been critical in this. We've started the year in first quarter of 22 very well, and that continues to be as strong for the rest of the year. Recently, it was earlier this month, we completed a $2 million placement, which is all completed, and right now we're in the middle of a rights issue for $10 million. And this will go to the reduction of debt by 10.5, and more importantly is the interest cost saving of up to $1.7 million, which drops straight to the bottom line. Next slide, please. Just an overview here of our recurring revenue, which has been increasing year upon year. This has been one of the company's initiatives with steady growth occurring from FY19. And this has been brought upon by our term contracts in dealing with hardware, software, and maintenance contracts. Now, the important part here, it has occurred across all of our three sectors in dealing with the roadways, councils, and power companies. And as the company evolves into software as a service, we expect further growth in recurring revenue. Next screen, please. So our pipeline here, as you can see, is fairly large. This is purely driven by smart city initiatives on new activity, but also the replacement of old legacy equipment, which is crucial. Now, the company's diversification program has also been instrumentally driving this pipeline, along with government infrastructure programs. Next slide, please. So what we have here is a strong order book of FY22 and beyond. Our demographic and physical policy tailwinds are really strong. Our pipeline with our bolt-on acquisitions of late has been tremendous, and in particular, a small acquisition which occurred at the end of June has delivered a $5.7 million contract with the big giant coach to us, which all that equipment will be deployed by June of next year. Another key part moving forward with growth is the consolidation of our manufacturing bases into one rather than having multiple, and the planned payment, of course, of our costly legacy debt facility, which drops all back down to the bottom line. Thank you.
Thanks, Con. I think that's the quickest presentation we've ever had. Congratulations. Hey, I've got quite a few questions for you. The first one is you're dealing with a lot of government departments.
Yes.
Is that difficult, and is what you're selling them potentially saving them money?
Yes, look, what we do, it is difficult in dealing with governments because you are tied to a lot of their safety initiatives, and as I mentioned earlier, financial impacts and environmental impacts. So once you're in and sticky with them and your products and services are pre-approved, where this all takes time, it can take up to 3 to 5 years to be involved with the government and have your wares and services approved. And once you're in, and then your items are prescribed and people have to use your items from there.
And are you signing contracts for what time frame?
3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years.
Yeah, with extension periods on them as well.
And there's a question here about energy companies. Can you know, many kind of Internet of Things companies have failed badly with monetizing with energy companies. Can you talk through your experience with those type of businesses?
No trouble at all. With the power companies, 70% of the power companies in this country we deal with, we supply all our hardware, which is all smart city ready. So in quite a few cases, we have a number of devices and sensors which are actually bolting on, and now moving towards profile. There's actually one big one right now in New South Wales going on. We're looking at software as a service on that to be able to monitor their street lighting, where previously there were people on the road running around trying to maintain the goods. We'd be able to do it remotely and doing it through the software.
And you announced a $5.7 million contract. That's is that with Coates Hire? So does that mean that the private sector is potentially clients as well?
Yes, the private sector is definitely, and it is Coates Hire. The big giant, after an exhausting process, they chose our product from the newly acquired company that we just did. It's been quite accretive to buy our goods and hardware in our software, and that'll be deployed before June of next year.
And you mentioned you're in a kind of a rights issue. That's to pay down debt. How much debt is on the balance sheet at the moment?
On the balance sheet, there's roughly about 11 million.
11 million.
Of debt. So we want to distinguish approximately up to 10.5.
Okay, and your EBITDA turned around. Your EBIT turned around very quickly. It was minus 11.4, and then the corresponding year was 2.3. What was the turnaround there?
The key drivers of that were the IoT platforms and our smart city initiatives that we've aligned to out there with the governments. That's been the key driver. Yeah.
And some questions. We've got quite a few questions here. Where does that reoccurring revenue actually come from? What products? Is it in the software, or is it a SaaS and sort of long-term contracts?
It's all of the above. The evolving. I'll hit the last part of it first, being the software as a service. That's the part we're evolving to. As I mentioned in one of the earlier slides, we have over 600,000 devices deployed out worldwide. It's that equipment that's out there right now, which we're actually moving slowly to actually digitize and bring to the forefront. Out of all those 600,000, a good 80,000 have already been digitized. And from there, the software has been compiled onto the units, and then they're ready to be turned on, depending on which area, whether it be a road, council, or power company.
And that breakdown of revenue from within Australia to international, what's that look like?
15% of our revenue last year was offshore, and the balance in Australia. And we consider Australia and New Zealand as one.
Understood. And can you talk about the competitors in this space? I assume it's a competitive space, and kind of where's your competitive advantage in that regard?
Oh, look, we do have competitors, but not one across all three sectors. We have key competitors in each sector, one of those three sectors. People ranging from the Siemens of the world to the Philips of the world, right through to smaller localized companies in each different sector.
And any plan on acquisitions in terms of growing your revenue through acquisitions?
Definitely, there is a strong blueprint to grow through acquisition as well, but they need to be strategic and they need to be accretive, just like the one we just completed in June.
Okay, and there's a question here around the current pipeline and debt repayment timeline. When does Con expect the company to be profitable, please?
Right. Okay. So I'll go through the debt part first. Straight after the rights issue is completed and the cash is in the door, so to speak, the debt's gone, and then we expect to see that $1.7 million of interest saving start dropping to the bottom line on a monthly basis from there on. As for the pipeline, there's a strong pipeline there, as mentioned earlier, coming from the initiatives of all the infrastructure programs and the smart city, which is expanding day by day.
And any idea of what the gross margin is, if you can tell us on kind of your SaaS sales?
Can't say that.
We've got some smart investors here, Con. They keep coming through with good questions.
I bet they have. Look, there's some things we can't do out there. Some are very sensitive to where we are. Otherwise, our competitor will start following suit into where we are. So we like to keep them in-house. And I think over the course of the half-year results, people start to see the impact of what we're doing.
Understood. And just finishing, where should investors be focused in regards to your timeline? What's coming up that they should be or should take note of?
It's all going to be driven around the infrastructure programs. As you know, around the country, things are booming right now. The timelines of some acquisitions, some more contracts coming through. It's going to be a really solid year for us.
And I've got a question for you. Could you actually disrupt the lollipop people and bring technology in just to put something in place to manage all those gridlocks?
If I could take you into our R&D rooms right now, 100%. That's exactly what you're seeing and what we're driving to. And this is part of the safety initiatives driven by governments in taking people off the road. People don't want to see them. There's been too many deaths over the years of workers on the road and what they do. So we're We have already developed a portable traffic light system, which can actually lock in and people can actually take off the road and it'll just pick up on the density of traffic and then change cycles from there. So good question.
I've seen that.
Pretty on board. Yeah.